And we're live. All right, so virtual brown bag meeting, kicking it off. This is the first one in a long time. We did a test run last week, but this is our official start. Um,
hmm
so what the virtual brown bag is I guess we need to work on that speech or whatever that we used to do every time. But it's every week we'll meet online and we'll talk about developer stuff. So like we were talking earlier, like tools, productivity, new libraries, new blog posts, things on your mind, new frameworks, new languages, work through problems. Like if you have something you might post with Stack Overflow and you're like, hey, let's try doing some live coding on stuff. And when we first started, we were all doing .NET stuff, similar things. Now we've all branched off to different areas, so it should be pretty robust what we're talking about, ranging from iOS to web to JavaScript and whatever is on our mind. I guess we can get started on some stuff. So, George, what were you saying that we're talking about? Maybe some productivity
Well,
tools or things? You want to start
yeah.
off with some
Well,
things?
one of the things that I want to also point out, like, I don't think any of us really know how to use this Hangouts on air thing. So
Yeah.
we might be using it wrong, so bear with us while we work out the kinks and so on. Um, yeah, I see Claudio joined too. So, Claudio,
Yep.
can you talk? All right, cool. Um, so, yeah, I think the way that this is supposed to be structured, and we're still kind of going to be working this out, but it really is kind of a show and tell. We've batted around some other possible structures for this, but I mean, especially because everyone comes from very wildly different backgrounds, I think this could be just really good way of um, allowing developers to see what's going on in different areas. Um, so just before we went on air, JB and I were talking. I was saying that just because it's the first one, it'd be a good way for everyone to kind of get value out of it right away if we share some, the productivity tools, the developer tools you kind of can't live without. Uh, that sort of thing could be a really quick way for everyone to get value out of this. Um, hopefully, we have enough people that can have something to share. I know JB wants to show some Elixir stuff. Um,
Okay. Well, I know for at first what you want to do if you want to troll Claudio hard in his life, make him uninstall Evernote or just delete Evernote. He might just curl up
No!
into a ball and cry in the corner and just give up on things.
he will have no memory.
Why do you want to kill me like that, man?
So I know you have a passion for Evernote. Why don't you talk to like how do you use Evernote for your client work and for your personal stuff and so forth?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you want me to start with that?
Yeah, just start with that stuff, and I have some things, and we'll just go through some of the stuff.
Sure. Well, I guess there's a blog post of mine on my blog. Let me pull it up so that people can get the link to it as well. And let me share my screen here. Right there. And that one. Share. All right. Yeah, there's a whole, I guess, on Cloud Note here. Where just go into my blog, lasala.net, and then to the Evernote tag there, there's a bunch of stuff that I've tagged in there as Evernote. But I think one of my most popular posts actually is this one, how I'm using Evernote, which is from back 5 years ago. But then I'm still getting some comments on it from people who's been reading it, and then so I decided like 2 weeks ago to just go over the notes and see if there's anything that I've changed too much about how I'm using it. And really, everything that I was describing there, I still do. I just added or reorganized some things. So for people who don't know it, Evernote's free service that you can create an account for, and then there's like a premium account where you get a couple more features and more that you can transfer the amount of data that you can transfer monthly. And the idea is that you can, like the three bullet point there that they use is you can capture everything. It can be just text notes, it can be images, it can be PDF files, it can be sound files, whatever. and then you can access everything anywhere. So like I use the Mac, I use Windows, I use the iPhone, the iPad, and on all the devices I have Evernote installed, and find things fast. That's my main thing, is that I can find everything that I need relatively quickly, as opposed to going through hard drives trying to find through my folder structure where things are. Since we can organize things in Evernote in two ways. One is by notebooks, which is almost like folders, and also with tags, where you can have as many tags as you want and tag it across. So if I don't find it in the notebook, I find it through the tags. And then you can set searches. There's very smart ways to perform searches. So like here on this blog, I describe the kinds of things that I capture. Like if I'm on Twitter and I find something useful, I can do a direct message to this myen alias, and it sends stuff straight to Evernote. Blog posts that I'm reading someplace, depending on what software I'm using to read the post. If I like it, if I feel like, I will probably be going back to that blog post at some point, I'll save that to Evernote as well. And then any contents that you find, you can just email it to this special Evernote account that you get assigned, which is like your name dot some weird random number at evernote.com. And then anything that you send to that email alias, it goes straight to your inbox notebook in Evernote. And I use that quite a lot, because sometimes you have apps on the iPhone, for instance, that does have an integration with Evernote, but I figure that sometimes if I can email it to Evernote, the email client on the iPhone is quicker than the integration between apps, how quick they can actually do that. So that is cool. Another thing that I use a lot is this web clipper. You can see here this little elephant up there, because then when I'm doing researches on the web, if I find something useful, I can click on this guy here, and then there's a bunch of stuff that you can do here. You can just save as a bookmark, you can save the full page, you can save the article, so it wipes out everything around the page, and it saves only the article that you're interested in. In the simplified article, it essentially strips out all the layout, any CSS, any extra crap that you may not need, and then it puts all that into your Evernote, and you can go through those things. Like here, yeah, this is what it does, right? So it grabbed just that one thing and cleaned up the whole site, and it saves just that part, and usually that's what you want in Evernote. So this I use a lot, and from here you can specify where do you want to save that, and what are the tags that you want to apply to it, and so that's pretty cool. What else? I capture audio notes, so if I'm at a meeting or something like that, I open up a note, and then I start typing my note, and then I also hit the record button depending on what the meeting is, so that later I can refer to it. What else? I save documents and stuff like that, like credit cards and things like that. I save it to Evernote, because if I ever lose my wallet or something like this, I can real quick find credit card numbers and the number that I have to call in the bank to cancel my accounts and things like that. License keys, those emails that whenever we purchase software, we receive an email. All those emails I send into Evernote. I put a license keys tag on it. Comes easy to find. I do a daily log, so as I'm doing things, there's a little add-on on the Mac that I just click on it and I type whatever, and it goes into a daily log type of note in Evernote. So I go doing that all day, and then at the end of the day I go to this log and just see the main points of the things that I was working on, or random thoughts oh, I cannot forget to do certain thing, I cannot forget to call somebody tomorrow. I'll just add those quick notes, and at the end of the day I'll just do my daily review, go over those, and then if it's something that I need to just archive, or if it's something that I need to create a task or a reminder, then I use this note to go over those things. And that, I've been doing this for 5 or 6 years now. So for the last 5 years, I can easily go back and say, okay, what did I do on September 10th of 2008, for instance. And why would I want that? Because it helps me recompose my memories. Because sometimes I remember, dude, I remember I've met that George guy right after that conference. When was it? Right? So I can, by the time frames and the names of the people and the tags, I can just help myself actually figure out stuff that I did or that I've met in the past. Session notes. Whenever I'm gonna do presentations, I put my session notes in Evernote, and then when I'm doing the presentation, I put those notes on the iPad on the side so they can follow through it and make sure that I'm not forgetting any point that I wanted to get across. Music stuff, I put it there. And then, let's see, the searches, the whole deal about how you can do things like search for notes that have an image created 3 months ago, stuff like that. Or if you put like the map thing that they have, you can also see like all the notes that I've created in Austin, all the notes that I've created in Houston, with the tag like JB, for instance. And then it goes shrinking up. But sometimes that's the other point of memory that I have. It's like, oh, dude, I don't remember how I've tagged it, but I remember I created that note when I was sitting by JB and he was doing some stuff and I was taking notes. That's as much as I remember. So it helps me getting to that information quickly. What else?
So I know you have the lot of client work and notes you take inside there. Have you ever found where clients share Evernote stuff with you, and have you found that be useful?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Like, well, an excellent brain that we're working together. I have two notebooks that I've shared with them. One is the one that I shared with the business. So we have like contracts, and whenever a contractor sends like an invoice or something, they send it to me. I archive it here, so it's immediately available to everybody. All like random notes from meetings and stuff like that, I share with them. And then I have another note for just regular like documentation. Whenever people start asking me, okay, so how do we do this? How do we do that? I create a note with the question, with the answer, put images and whatever, and say, okay, here's a link to the thing. Next time somebody asks you, you know where to go find information.
Claudio, I think I remember drawing that chart like 6 years ago.
Isn't that awesome? Right, exactly, and that's the other thing, right? I really like this because every time we are at meetings, drawing stuff, I take pictures of everything, put it on Evernote, and then when it makes it to the Evernote site, they do some OCR on it. So when you do searches, it's gonna find the stuff that you wrote on the drawing board. So and I've used that a lot. So sometimes, yeah, you find some models that, the three of us, we worked at EPS, and they all show up here. So that's the main thing. And then I think 2 weeks ago, I posted something with a couple more links. I found there's this one guy on YouTube, Evernote Scott, I think is his handle. And he has like 3 or 4 very extensive videos explaining how he defines his goals, he describes what his goals are, and then what the next steps are, and then he keeps like a little log at the bottom of each goal, and then keeping track that way. I started doing that last year. I did the whole year, and it's really helpful. And it's essentially just creating a series of notes, handwritten notes, nothing fancy, but just having what's the goal, what are the key motivators, why do you want to keep that as a goal, right? And then what is the actionable next item that you can work on, and then a little log, because then at the end of the month, when I do a monthly review, I go over these notes and say, okay, at the beginning of the year, I said I had all these 10 goals. Let me see if I have taken at least one step towards each one of those. Because if I haven't, maybe I have to review things. Maybe it's like, well, do I really want that as a goal? Is it something that I'm actually going to push forward, or it's something that's not relevant to me anymore? So, using Evernote for that kind of stuff has been very, very helpful. I think that's the gist of it. I could go for it on and on with different samples, but
just we'll just delete your Evernote account. I'll just email the Evernote right now. Like,
that would be terrible, man. Just put a bullet in my brain. That's it.
Okay. So, So yeah, it's always fun working with Claudio with that because everything is in Evernote. Like you just know, like every meeting, every note, every something that we talked about, and he'll share it, and you're searching. And I have the problem that I can't find anything because everything's in Evernote because I don't know how to search it right.
Right. Yeah, it's sometimes I've been reading. There's a Brazilian guy who has written books and stuff about Evernote, and his way of organizing things is by trying to tag or name things the way he thinks. Like for instance, when he thinks wine, he thinks in single. So anything that he wants to look for, like good wine that he's drunk, whatever he tags everything with wine. Now for beer, he thinks in plural, beers, right? So it's like, well, so it's not consistent. Do you name it single? Do you name it plural? Well, it depends on how I think. Whenever I think beer, I think beers. I'm not going to have one beer. I'm going to have beers, right? So I started thinking that way too. It's like, when you want to find something, how do you think about it? And then use that as the way to tag and name things. That has been helping quite a bit finding. I mean, I have like 15,000 notes right now. It's a crap load.
That's a lot of notes.
It is.
So George, you brought up the subject too.
Yeah.
Is there something on your mind for productivity tools? So we clearly have Evernote,
Yeah, sure.
which is you can run your entire life through Evernote.
Right.
And they have
Yeah,
everything ever.
Let me show some stuff in there.
Yeah.
So first of all, I mean, I guess I don't know how many people on here actually use Windows. I'm sure yourself, Claudio, and Mark don't. But Windows, if you haven't heard of Chocolatey yet, just know about Chocolatey. It's a package manager for Windows that works really nicely, and also happens to have like all the tools a developer would ever want in it. It's very, very, very nice. Choco install, no, and you don't have to look around for exe files. At this point, this project's been running for about 4 years, and I think it's at this point going to serve as the core of the package manager that Microsoft itself is going to put out. It's going to have some other options. It's not going to be called Chocolatey, but it's going to have Chocolatey at its core, which is pretty cool. Okay, cool. This is a good one. I think people just need to hear about it. This little Chrome plugin called Vimium. So I do use Vim in Vim mode. I like it a lot. This doesn't necessarily have anything to do with that. And so first of all, it's nice you can scroll your site by putting J and K keys, whatever. That's not a big deal. Here's a thing that is great about it that you don't really need to know Vim at all. So I'm going to press the F key right now. And now I can navigate any single link on the page super easily. If you press the question mark? Nope. Oh, it's because it's just focusing on a question mark. It'll even tell you exactly what you can do. So you want to jump around. This is like crazy, crazy, crazy useful. I should stop going to pages which autofocus on search. Also has a very nice search in there, and you can kind of jump around and use all the Vim shortcuts. So actually, I started using this right around the time I started learning Vim, and this kind of turned into a gateway into at least learning the very basics of Vim for me, just because, once I'm using this anyway, I realize that J and K for scrolling is very nice. And you don't have to take your keys off the keyboard, and you kind of look at this and you're like, oh, you kind of can see a lot of the analogs for stuff. So Vimium, it's a plugin. It's super straightforward and very, very neat.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I've been using it from the Windows days, and also on the Mac it works just the same way. And this one I've been using forever, and it's cool. Like since it's an add-on for Chrome, whenever I do like a new install on a Mac or stuff like that, all this stuff comes in, and it's like yes.
Yep. Okay. The next thing I want to talk about, and this is for specifically for Windows. I'm a big fan of PowerShell. but the PowerShell console kind of sucks. It's just not great. So if you do that, go to Chocolatey, install Conemu, pull it down, install it, and you get this terminal, which you can hook up to which you hook up to PowerShell and stuff like that. In fact, what this is a better terminal. It's not, or it's still running PowerShell or command line or whatever that, but just the actual window and the annoying stuff about copying and pasting in it. It handles all of that and does it in a really, really nice way. So if you remember Console 2 back in the day, this is actually an upgrade to that.
So wait, what's the name of this?
Conemu, like console emulator. And if you look at it,
gotcha.
It has every single option in the world on it, like everything.
Yeah.
In fact, if I jump, this is inside my VM. Outside of my VM, I have it working in Quake mode, where it just pops down. I had control. It's my VM right now. Hit that and pops down in Quake mode, and it's very nice. Now, why I like PowerShell. Back in the day, I used to use Launchy, or we used to use Slick Run or something like that to open files. Turns out PowerShell can do all that and more. So PowerShell has a command called invoke item, which means do the system default thing on the thing that I provided. So if I say invoke item W:, well, the system default is open it up in a file explorer. So I can use it as a directory launcher. Invoke item is very handy. Has a shortcut called II. So like that, you could use that to launch. Well, I mean, you don't even need II to launch executables and stuff like that. But it's very, very nice. You can get autocomplete. You can get all the PowerShell tools you want. So, like for example, I have something installed called Z, which allows me to jump back and forth between recent directories very, very easily. Now, so PowerShell launching, basically I set PowerShell to be the default shell in Conemu, and I set Conemu to start when I start my computer up, because I'm using it basically nonstop as a system launcher. Now, here's the other thing that's kind of cool about Conemu. So it's got all the configurability. It's it's got all that. You can copy and paste stuff more easier. But it gets really neat when you realize it has a lot of this split screen stuff that people in Linux use stuff like tmux for. So let's say I want to start another PowerShell session, but I want to start that one in admin mode. New console, admin mode, and it's going to start right up there. So now I've got two consoles tabbed running in admin mode. Let's say I want to start another console, but actually I want two consoles on the screen at the same time. PowerShell.exe -new console split horizontally. And Windows Q to toggle between them. Let's say I want this. So actually, I'm going to run node sass, right? So I'm going to, so I have a file here. You can see, basically, I'm going to have a sass watch task on there, which is going to compile my sass. So let's say I want to run that, but I want to kind of keep working at the same time. So I'm going to say npm run sass watch new console. Let's say split screen, and keep it at 30% horizontally. So now it's going to just start running there. And as files if I were to go in and I change the files, you'd see it update. So for example, what are some files I have in there? Oh, I, of course, set this up all weird.
Yeah. I think you need another content folder there, George.
Yeah, no.
Content. It's Inception. You need to be at least 3 levels down.
Right. So say, well, I go in here, say display block, and see it's kind of running. And this is kind of the same type of thing that a lot of people are using tmux for, right? And you can split other ways. So a lot of times I'll end up splitting like 7 different directions. Well, not 7, but several different directions, right? So I'll have a SAS watcher compiling up there, and maybe my karma test running in a split screen down from there. This is especially handy if you do like little utility tools like Vim. Like you just saw, I open up Vim inside of here, right? Right, stuff like that. So very handy. I don't always use Vim. Usually I'm using Sublime Text or Visual Studio or Atom, but for quick stuff, it is very, very nice. This is also nice. So there's another utility you can download called Farm Manager, and I haven't actually started using it very much. But let's do, I'm just going to open it up. Well, I'll do this. Far new console. New underscore console equals split vertically. Yeah, why didn't that work? I don't know. I think I typed the wrong thing. But if what you see here, Farm Manager is basically a completely command line file browser, which could be very, very, very nice. And you can browse everything through the command line if you want like a much nicer experience for that. I haven't used it a ton, but it is pretty useful. I've used it enough. Let's see, what else do I have? I showed all that. You know what? That's good. I think because we're at that brings us to the half-hour mark. I have more stuff to talk about later. Yeah, so I totally recommend if you're on Windows of time, download, install Conemu. If you go on Chocolatey and search Conemu in there, you'll see people have pre-configured Conemu packages. I just use my own. There's also the CMDR, which is, I think, it builds on, but honestly, I haven't even looked into that one. But it's the shit. Download it, set PowerShell as your default, set it, and you, in order to use it, actually set it to run when your system starts, because otherwise you'll forget to use it and be clicking like a sucker everywhere.
Yeah, if you're using the mouse at all in George's realm, you're the sucker. Apparently.
Yeah. All right, yeah. So that's it. Anyone got any questions about this stuff? It's pretty.
We also
awesome.
have the Q&A on the side too, and people can chat and stuff. We're still getting used to that. I'm sure people.
Yeah, are people chatting? No, people are not chatting. That's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't have any productivity tools besides just being awesome.
Why don't we ask the group? Does anyone have anything else? Anything they'd want to show?
I've got a couple things. Just one. So I finally started using a physical planner for my week, and that has been incredibly useful. Whereas before I was just adding all my tasks to a text document on my computer, which would just sort of grow and grow and then shrink and shrink. But I never really had a clear idea of when stuff was happening. It was just like, okay, there's more work to do. I should do more work. I'm actually using a tip that JB gave me many years ago, which was when the rectangle in the planner fills up with too many lines, and that's all you can do that day. And that's been very helpful. Something. See, I don't know if am I screen sharing here.
Well, you have to say access, put in screen sharing is to the left, I think. You should have an option.
Okay.
If not, let's see if I can promote
It's a green screen with a white arrow.
Okay. So
there we go.
This is kind of just a little hack, but I found it it's kind of nice. So I use iTerm, and I have this. You can make different profiles, which is cool. But whenever I'm trying to concentrate on a particular project, I will have my terminal cd into that directory and run git status first thing, which I found kind of keeps me on track if I start. I don't know if I start like looking at other projects, or I want to make a note here and here that you can see when I just make a new tab. It's like, oh, here I am. Okay, that's what I've got going on, and I have this open as soon as my computer, as soon as I log in. So like the first thing I see is, I'm in the directory I'm working on. Here's my current status. I found that's been really helpful just in terms of keeping me focused on a particular task. That's pretty much it. Oh, I guess the other thing, inbox zero. I think some of you probably do that at least. So basically, the idea is just to keep your inbox as clean as possible. And I found that when I would just sort of let emails pile up, it's really hard for me to differentiate what's important and what's not. And there are things that, oh, okay, that's really important, but I can't do anything about that until Wednesday, so I'll leave it there, versus me sending notes to myself, which would clutter up a lot, and then newsletters and such. So actually, I've gone through a process of just unsubscribing from a bunch of newsletters I don't really care about, things like Kickstarter projects I funded or something. They're like, oh, it's neat, but I don't really need to be up to date. If I want to find out what's going on with that, I can always Google for it. And then I just have a habit that when I email myself notes, because I do that a fair bit, when I'm back on my computer, as soon as I see that, I take that note and I do something with it, which might be to schedule something on my calendar. It might be to research, look at some GitHub link that I found browsing the web. But in all cases, I end up doing something with that note and then deleting it. And I found that sort of keeps me honest. Like, okay, if it's in my inbox, it's got to be important, and if it's not, it shouldn't be there. So when I do open my email, everything I see is relevant. And one thing you can do if you use Gmail, and you can probably do this with some other clients too, is you can actually organize. If you go into settings, you can like change the kind of inbox you have, and so I have where my important unread messages show first, and then below that I have the regular inbox. So that way, if I open something and respond to it, but keep the thread open, I try to delete messages when periodically, but what happens is if you have important and unread first, the number counter only shows those. So even if I have 100 messages in my inbox, but they're all read and responded, then I've got 0 first. So I found that to be really useful in just not feeling overwhelmed. And I can prove to myself that I'm actually on top of my communications. So like, well, I think I've, taken care of everything I have to, but there's 50 emails in the way that aren't important. So this way I'm just confident that things I have to do are being done.
It's pretty good. I'm terrible at inbox.
It's definitely, there's sort of an initial, you sort of gotta grind through it. Like it took me over the course of couple months, really, just like going through and be like, wait, why was I subscribed to that? Or I got added to email lists from marketing organizations, and just gradually unsubscribing, filtering, unsubscribing, filtering, deleting, saving things when I found them useful. It definitely takes time, but once you get to a good state, I found it really useful. And that said, though, I do prefer to use email as sort of my main communication tool. So like I'm on several different Slacks for different companies, different groups, but each of those, I'll have Slack open all day. I I'll just check my email. I'm like, oh, I've got a notification. I'm gonna go check that out. I use Google Voice, so text messages go straight to my email. So if someone texts me something urgent, I'm gonna see it in my inbox. I don't have to go check my phone for it. So yeah, it's a bit of work to set up, but I found it's drastically improved my productivity since.
Yeah, I also had a lesson because we learned this week from my team where um, at first we were just developing so fast that it wasn't that we excluded the client from the conversations, it's just we didn't include them. And so there came an impression that like certain things weren't being done or worked on when every week's been fantastic in terms of what we've been delivering. It's awesome. So we did this week like just did a stand up and include them in the stand up, and it was, I mean, we're at second day and it's night and day difference in terms of their attitude because they can just see now like, oh, this is what they're doing and working on. And even though they saw and we were discussing it, it's just they're sort of standing in the middle of the shop and they get to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So that just reminded me with Inbox Zero that look, communication is important, even though I'm terrible at it and I don't like emails and so forth, but it is important. It's something you should work on.
I have just one more thing to show.
Yeah.
So this is, I don't know, I found this to be useful. Your mileage may vary, but I found that working on a computer and having contrast change a lot from different sites, different programs, it hurts my eyes. It bothers me. So what I did is you can see the color of my terminal background here, and you can compare that to the color of my Sublime Text background here, and you might notice a similarity.
Monochrome. No. Didn't you used to like inverse the colors and stuff too?
Yeah, so I still have that option, but I don't. I have to use it minimally because my Firefox browser will also see the background color is similar. In theory, it should be the same because I tried copying the RGB values, but these programs, I guess, render color a little differently, but it's pretty close. And so it's just really easy on my eyes if I'm switching between, here's a web search, okay, back to my terminal, back to code, and it's all pretty similar. I do use Chrome for some things still, and I'm trying to transition more to Firefox. One thing I installed this plugin called HackerVision, which I don't know if that's going to show on your screen or not, but if I turn on HackerVision, it changes color.
Yeah, it shows.
Okay.
This is what you're normally looking at Anthony's computer does. Why is everything so weird?
So the problem with it though in like Chrome issues, when I open a new tab, it like flashes white and then goes black, and that bothers my eyes a lot. So I try to use Chrome like really only for things I already have basically saved sign-ins for, and then I'm trying to transition more to Firefox because it doesn't flicker like that. But yeah, I found that kind of useful. I guess the last thing I'm remembering, which this is probably I found it useful, but I use a couple things about my desk setup. So I use a Colmac keyboard for one, which is just a different layout than QWERTY, with keys that you use more commonly on the home row. But all of the Q, W, A, Z, X, C, V, all that stuff's the same. So like closing windows, cutting, copying, pasting doesn't change. And I also use this kind of keyboard right now. I just ordered a different one. This is what I'm using right now. It's this split keyboard, and this has made such a difference because my shoulders aren't hunching while I'm typing, and the keys starts to work pretty nicely. And I use that combined with what is it called? Look at the brand. Tab. Well, uh, well, I thought I would be able to. I don't know why I'm on list. This one. And I found that if I leave my wrist on this and just kind of type my fingers like I'm playing piano, my fingers don't, my wrist doesn't hurt from typing. So I'll paste these in the chat if anyone's interested. You can look them up. But yeah, I found these really useful.
So you go to help Anthony and pair with them, and his screen's all inverted with a different keyboard, and the keyboards are all apart, and you're like, all right, look, I'm just going to talk to you. You type.
I added this is an option.
One thing I'd like to add about the screen color thing,
Yeah.
turn down, like everyone needs to just turn down their screen brightness. By default, all monitors, all screens come with the brightness turned all the way up to 100%, which is of course not the best for your eyes. Like 100% is not going to be that. It's for sale. It's for sales. It sells well when it's really, really bright, but the default brightness is not the best brightness, and nobody ever thinks to turn it down. Turn it the frick down.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll share one thing here. Anthony talked about the journal, so let me actually do this real quick and share my screen. That's right. There we go. Oh, and we've gone into the matrix.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, I used to have a journal. It was like the action journal, and I used it, and I have like piles of them. So I'm like the weird serial killers that they go discover in the movies. They have all these journals on shelves, and that's my stuff with all my days. You can't search it, and there's no OCR and images or anything, and it's just done. This is there.
But it can't be deleted in one go.
And you can set it on fire and delete it. and
Right.
it's great. But they stopped making action journals. So I was like, I go order my reload, and they're like, nope, we don't make them anymore. And I'm like, the hell? So my wife was using this journal, and I've switched to use this, and I actually like it a lot now. Because previously I was using my journal, I'd plan, first it was planning weeks, but then I was getting so much stuff done that I was like, I need these for days, and then it was almost like
You're
too
not
much
sharing
for
the
a
screen,
day.
by the way. If you
I'm
think
not sharing my screen?
No.
How's it not doing that?
Well, I can see it.
Oh, weird.
Click on me,
Yeah,
you can't see
I
it?
see it too.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
tried
Weird.
to-
I can't see it.
Okay, maybe this. How about this?
Oh, I see.
Is that better?
Not for me. That's weird.
Yeah, you can see it just fine.
All right. Whatever.
Yeah.
Can everyone else see it?
I'm stopping, now I'm starting again. And I want to say
Maybe paste a link in the chat like I did.
present to everyone. Is
Nope.
that showing?
Is it? If it's just me, it's fine.
Welcome. So I'm using this journal. It's called Emergency Task Planner. And the thing I like about it is, if we can see here, for your day, so the top box, I fill out the date and the day, so like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because later you're caring about the numbers, but for your week you're actually caring about the days. So you're like, what happened last Thursday? You identify 3 primary tasks, and that's what I really focus on. Is like, look, a day is good if I get these 3 things done. And every time I'm writing this stuff down, I decide what's important. I always go for my mind, like, it's also about, it's like, I beat myself up, like I'm not getting enough stuff done. So this is, to me, is like, look, if all the craziness in the world happens, but at least I get these things done today, that's a pretty good day. And then I add more on going down it, and look down here is generally notes and stuff. The left-hand side, I've gotten a habit now of keeping a time log of as I'm working on things. Again, it's so that I can look back and you're sitting there, you're coding and things, and you're like, I didn't get anything done. It's 6 o'clock, and then you're like, what happened today? I can look back and I can look, okay, this is what happened as I broke down these different hours and so forth. Anyway, yeah, so that's how I do my journals. And as Anthony pointed out, my logic for doing physical is always the idea that there's a physical constraint on the paper such that you can easily overwhelm yourself in an electronic version because there's no limit. You can put as many things as you want. This limits you to say that, look, this is the only thing you can get done. And when it's full, it's full. There's nothing else you can do about it.
I totally agree with you. I think that that's an awesome strategy, and I'm totally going to write that down. I similarly am constantly writing down when I code, and I find it's easier to avoid sort of being frustrated. When you think about the analog as being the thing that you're doing, and it's sort of easy to get that kind of detachment from your code that helps you sort of debug it without getting stressed out. So I'm like constantly sort of just writing on a sticky note for like I have a folio, and if I get frustrated, I'll just tear that page out of that folio, stick it out on the board, and just come back to it. It's very easy to sort of just take a time out that way.
Yeah, I think I like physical aspects too. Like, so Kanban boards, I actually like note cards and stuff too, because I think there's being able to see it and touch it, and it's helpful for me. And it works really great with a remote team, right, George? Right? I'm not joking. The remote team doesn't work at all. So you have to do your own thing. So anyway, we've been talking about productivity tools, and we're getting kind of close to the end, but I still want to share. So, Claudio, I want to do some Elixir and some code stuff, because I've been wanting to share Elixir, but you've been off in Brazil land, and so, like, I'm like, dude, I want to share this stuff. And so I'm going to share some things with you here. And
awesome. Can you do it next week?
No, we're doing it this week.
No.
Why? What's up?
I don't know. You got about 10 minutes left, right?
Yeah, but that's not going to show all the stuff. But next week we'll get into more of the Phoenix. This is just going to be a pure Elixir thing. So I'm going to do... So Mix is like a bundler and rake thing for Elixir. So what I hear is like, hey, I'm just working a new project, and it'll create a new folder for me. Well, I'm doing a new repo, but reasons. What I like about it has everything configured up for you, so you can. This is like your gem file, so you can include gems. But here's the packages. You have your README. You put your lib folder and some config. This is where you put like your environment variables and so forth. And really, you'd put in a secret file. I'll share that another day because it's actually pretty cool the way they do environment configuration. But what I also like about it is that it sets up your tests and it comes packaged with tests. So it's like I don't have to worry about installing whatever library. I'm going to use XUnit and get it done. All right, so the example I want to walk through is something I'm going to have on my blog, but we'll just code it live and then I'll share the link afterwards. But what I want to show is just like an example refactoring of why Elixir is cool, or at least why I think it's very expressive. So I'm going to first make the tests that we're testing against. Here, and we'll just call it BBB test. How about that? So there's a game, a board game like to play with friends. It's called Sheriff Nottingham. And part of Sheriff Nottingham is you get these goods as a hand, and each of these goods are worth different values. And so what this code is going to do is you're going to give it an array of cards, and then it's going to return the value of your hand. So an apple is worth 2, a bread's worth 3, a cheese is worth 3, a chicken is worth 4, and 2 apples, 2 times 2 is 4. So here we go. We have our tests, and if we ran our tests, we'll mix tests B, we're going to blow up because you need to tell it what has to run. It's going to say, hey, I don't know what that is. All right, so let's start doing that. We'll go to lib, And we'll define a module, call it sheriff. And what we had, value of, and we're going to have our goods. So we'll just return 2, so we should get 1 passing test and a bunch of failures. All right, so if we were going to just first calculate this out, we would go, we have an array, and we want to take this array of items, and we want to return a single value, so this is going to be a reduce on this. So we'll do reduce, we'll pass in goods, you pass in the, I forgot what the accumulator, I guess it's called, and this will be the good that was being passed in the array, and then this will be the accumulator that we're going to be handling. Now we need to know the value of the good. So if we're saying if the good is equal to apple, we'll say sum is equal sum plus 2. And as you get the idea, I'll just copy and paste this stuff. So now when we run this, hey, we got passing tests. So, okay, there's not much of a big deal with that. But one thing we can do is we can change these if statements to a big case statement. So let's change that to good. And what we'll do is match good against these amounts. So now we'll get that, and we'll prove that we're good. Ta-da.
Nice.
So that's pretty nice, but also Elixir is like Ruby, that the last value is going to be returned. So what we can do is, and that'll be assigned to the sum, so we don't have to assign it directly. We can just get it down to this. Right? Now, what we can also do is, I want to show an example of pattern matching, is that we can set up, what Elixir will do is match the input to a function with the value and call that particular function. So what I mean by that is this. If we had a function called value of good, and we pass in the parameter apple, we want to return 2. And we can do that for all of these. So now, instead of using a case statement, we can return, actually, I think we can just do this. Let's double check. Yeah, we needed the sum plus that, yeah. So now we'll go through, iterate through the goods, and call this function. And the function it actually calls is based on the value of good. So it will match that input and call these different functions.
Question here. So it looks like, are those symbols like in Ruby?
They're called atoms, and they're different but the same. So yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm wondering. I guess when I see this, I'm reminded of having classes that would have a method called value, and like the bread class would return 3, and the cheese class, or the chicken would return 4, apple 2.
Yes, there's. So it's similar, but there's also concepts called protocols, which would be similar, another way of doing something like that.
Okay. Is a pattern matching always with symbols, or does it match?
No, you can match it with anything, which we'll be getting into next.
Okay.
We also do shorthand for this, as we can, since it's just returning one value, we can write it this way. Come on, let's go. This is 3. And we should be good here. All right, so we do have this enum reduce function, but we're going to show a cool thing with pattern matching on how we can actually iterate through this without using the enum reduce. So what we can do is I'll keep this here so that we can look at it. For our value of, we're going to call and say, you pass us an array. This breaks up the array by the head and the tail. So if we had an array of 1, 2, 3, you could assign, let's say, head and tail is equal to x. Now head will be 1 and tail will have 2 and 3. So we're saying, hey, if you pass us an array, assign the head to good, assign the tail to goods. And what we'll do is we will take the value of the good and we will add it to the value of the rest of the goods. And what we'll have here is say, hey, when you call this with an empty array, return the value of 0. So now we have, it was like, okay, you pass an array, it will break it out and will recursively call value of until it gets to the end of an empty array and return 0. So as you can see, we can pattern match on more than just atoms. We can pattern match on any value and the deconstruction of what the input is.
Interesting.
Now we can actually take that one step further because we can be, all right, well, if we can pattern match, why do we even need two functions? We can just call this value of good. And then what we can also do is, here we're saying, hey, if it's empty array at 0, we could also just be a catch-all, and we can say, you know what, anything else you pass into us, return 0. So this says default match to anything. And so now we run this, that. And if we put this in line, because it's just one line, no big deal, we now have a value of function. So let's look at, we started off with, let's get this here. So we started off with this, which wasn't bad, it worked, and we reduced it down to this. This is also more robust because now we can, you can call value of and pass in just a single value, or you can pass in a hand. You can also pass in things that it doesn't even care about because it's going to return 0.
That's very cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and after a while, you get used to the pattern matching and point that it becomes really handy, and you hate it that you don't have it.
So do you do this kind of pattern matching a lot then? And
yes, because you have other scenarios too. So let's make a new file. We'll just call this BBB2. How about let's def module. Again. What it allows you to do is, let's say we have this. Let's call this an execute command. Like we can put whatever. I'm just going to call it execute. And we want to take, you know, like we need an email and a password. How about that? We'll call this login. What we can do here is then say, you know, we'll just pretend we logged in here. Login. We can return that, hey, this worked okay. That's what we return. What we can then do is, let's make our tests. No, here. Login tests. Tests should log in to, and so what we'll call, I'll actually rename this. I'll log in, we'll call this execute. We'll pass in TonyStark.com. I am Iron Man. And we will assert that result is equal to. So let's give this back here. Actually, the file name doesn't matter because it's compiled down, but not too much Ruby in me to have the names match. Tests, and we'll have login. Login, execute. Oh, because I didn't do that. All right, so what is neat about it in the pattern matching is, let's say if we were like, you need email and password. What if they didn't pass in the email? What would we do? Well, you could do email is equal to nil, then we need to return the error, and email is required. Right? We can have something like that. So we'll make our little test here. It should require email. We'll return error and say email is required. Oh, my spelling and caps is important. So you could do that, but as you can see, we got a lot of branches in this code, and isn't it kind of weird and ugly? But the way I do now with some pattern match stuff is I can say execute nil, and I don't care about password because the pattern match is anything, but you're just like, look, I just don't care what I want to do. I can then return. So now I have the same result, but it's very clear up here. Hold on one second.
So just to make sure I'm following how this works, you basically, like on line 4, that's your standard definition for how the execute function works. But you can basically make, instead of doing a bunch of case statements or if statements, you can just detect certain patterns and handle them. And the advantage is that it's sort of separate from your main logic. Instead of every method you write having a bunch of edge cases in it, where you look at it and you've got 2 lines of logic and 4 lines of case detection, you separate that so it's easy to refactor and easier to read.
Yeah, that's why I feel like it's easy to read and how it goes on. Also, you can do with this is, notice we're getting these results back as it's passed in. What we can do is we'll say require password. You could pattern match on the result you get back. So this pattern of passing a tuple with error or OK is pretty common through a lot of other libraries because it's easy in Elixirland to do this. So I can say, actually, we'll just simplify it more. You can say, OK, if it's OK, then do more stuff. If it's an error, what it does is it'll return the error and then take whatever the second value is and assign it to the message variable. So then I can say, we'll return the error message to me. What this lets you do is build on top of these commands and easily have good error handling scenarios where you can go, okay, what happened and what's the result I get back. So this login command too, you could also have OK return the user that it logged in with.
So on line 18 with the error and message, is IOInspect, is that your log?
Yeah, you can just inspecting. This is like pudding with the.
Yeah. Okay, so is that test and expecting the message to come back, or I guess I'm not quite following how that.
So it expects. So here if you look on the right, I have a tuple here with error and high, and that's what X is. If I want to get the high out and assign it to a value, I can say I don't care about the first element. Right. I want to assign to message.
So like on line 19, that's just for your test failure case, right? It's going to tell you, hey, it failed because of this message.
Yeah, exactly. Messages just from a tuple value that I'm returning.
Okay, so you're actually getting that from the code instead of expecting the result. Let's make sure I'm following along.
Yeah.
Instead of saying the result is going to have this exact string of email is required, you're just saying, okay, we had some error happen, and here's what the code told us to. So you don't have to match up emails required in your testing and your actual code.
Right. So more like if I have the pattern that every time I return an error, I'm going to have an error and pass in a message with it here. This handler right here will handle all the errors I would get from login.
Gotcha.
And I can do something with it.
Okay, cool.
And so then you can read from tuples and assign different things. And it's just gotten to a point where it's like, I love the pattern matching so much because you're getting JSON back at times and you want to pattern match and read certain values out of it. And you can go in levels down and it's fine with things. So if we had here, and we were like, first name, day, last name, B.
Hey, we're getting pretty far over.
Yeah.
It might be good to talk about real quick. We need to set up a channel for people to provide feedback. So were we gonna put up a website or something like that?
So what we did, you cannot. Yeah, I'm gonna put up a website. I don't know how we're gonna do feedback there. We can't get a consistent URL with Hangouts, but there is a third-party tool that does do that.
Isn't there a way that do you have to pay to get a consistent URL? Because I know I've seen.
Not through Google that I've seen. Like you can go through like here's a third-party thing that uses the Google stuff. And
well,
so
if we have a website, we can start just by having
the link on there.
Yeah, the link on there
Yeah.
become available or something like that. Yeah, and I mean, like we could draw up a discuss form or something like that on the full website if you're just doing it on GH pages or something like that. Don't want to put a backend in place. I think because I do want to hear more Elixir. I want to keep going, but I think we do need to come up with a way of. We need to just really quickly get that out of the way because people are going to start dropping.
Yeah, so the virtual brown bags will have the domain, so we'll get that set up, probably do a GitHub page, and figure out a way that we can automatically update and do links. I think we might try this out because at least for free we can set up a URL and we can see if it's okay, and then if it grows a point where we need to do it more regularly, we can see if we can get sponsorship for stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, so anyway, that's what I want to share with Elixir because I freaking love it and it's awesome. And I love the pattern matching and I find it super expressive. And then I go into JavaScript land and I'm like, guys. But ES6 though, and you're like, no, it's not the same thing.
Right. Cool. Yeah, I do like what I see, man.
Yeah, we'll do another one. We'll start on Phoenix because then it's like I get all this, but then I get the power of Rails, and I don't get the slowness of Ruby.
That's
pretty cool.
Interesting. Yeah.
Well, I think we're over 10 minutes over. That's not surprising.
Right.
So thanks everyone for coming up and speaking up and sharing, and I hope you got a lot of value on it. And stay tuned to the Twitter feed and soon the website, and we'll do this again next week from Tuesday, 12:30 to 1:30.
Yep.
Awesome. Have a good one.
Later,
Awesome.
guys.
Yeah.